Special election for Congress between the Republican Matt Van Epps and the Democratic nominee Afton Bain. And this race so significant because folks are looking at this as a clue for where we are politically right now and where we may be headed in the 2026 midterms. You think of what has happened this fall. This fall, politically speaking, has been full of some rough news for President Trump and for the Republican Party. The president's approval rating, it has slid a few points. That slide seemed to coincide with the October government shutdown. It has continued to the point where he's now at the lowest approval rating on average at any point in his second term. We've also seen the generic ballot. That's something we're always keeping a close eye on, asking folks, what party do you want to see control Congress in 2026? Democrats have opened a lead on the generic ballot this fall over Republicans. And then, of course, there's what happened in New Jersey and in Virginia a month ago. Landslides, Democratic landslides. Maybe not as much of a surprise in Virginia, but certainly in New Jersey, where Republicans went into Election Day believing they had a chance at an upset, and they ended up losing by double digits. That's the backdrop for what we're about to watch in a traditionally Republican district here in Tennessee, one that President Trump carried by 22 points in his election campaign last year, one that he lost by 15 points in his reelection campaign. Won by 15 points. I'll get this straight by the end of the night, back in 2020. So Republican territory we're talking about here, but potential Democratic momentum. So does this land in a close race tonight? Would this ever land with a Democratic victory? If it does, it's the clearest, loudest signal we've had yet of this political environment moving decisively in the favor of Democrats and against Republicans. Conversely, for all of the attention this race has drawn, for the polling, we saw a poll that put this as a 2-point race just a couple days ago. If Van Epps, if the Republican is able to walk out of here with a decisive win tonight, say a comfortable double-digit win, that is something Republicans might take some hope from, given how difficult the political environment has seemed for them lately. So we have a lot that we're going to be covering tonight. I'm looking at the clock. It is 7:47 right now. The polls are going to close in this district about 13 minutes from now at 8 o'clock. You can see here, counties will start lighting up. I'll take you through here in a minute what we expect over the course of the evening. I'll also take a bigger picture look at sort of what we've seen in other special elections. But let me tell you maybe a little bit about how tonight is going to work. Thank you, by the way, if you're joining us on the live stream. Our goal tonight is to give you the results. Just all of the results, nothing but results from the time those polls close at 8 o'clock until we get a call. Is it going to be a short night? Is it going to be a long night? Is it going to be something in between? We're going to be along for the entire ride. I hope you're going to be with us for it as this board lights up. So with that in mind, let's use these few minutes before polls close, maybe to set the stage a little bit more. So what I want to show you first is we're going to go off the results map. We can do that now because there are no results yet. It's safe to navigate away. And I want to show you what we've seen in special elections so far this year that sets the stage for tonight, because there's been a pretty clear pattern. These are the House special elections that we've seen coming into tonight. There were 2 in Florida back in April. There was 1 in Arizona and 1 in Virginia in September. And what you're looking at here, this was the 2024 presidential election result in those districts. This was 2020. And this is what happened in the special election for Congress. And here's the pattern. Look, in Florida's 1st congressional district, in the Panhandle, Donald Trump won that district, very, very Republican district. He won it by 37 points. Republicans comfortably won the seat in the special election, but it was only 15. In other words, that was a 22-point shift away from the Republicans and toward the Democrats in that Florida district. Okay, same day, across the state in Florida 6, another very Republican district that Trump had won by 30 points. Again, Republicans won it comfortably, but by 14. That was a shift. You could probably do the math, too. 16 points away from the Republicans in the Democrats' direction. Now, in September, in Arizona, this was a very blue district. This was to replace the late Raul Grijalva. 22 points Kamala Harris had won this district by in 2024. That swelled to a 40-point Democratic victory in the special election. So that is an 18-point jump for Democrats. And in Virginia, September 9th, again, Democratic district, 34 points for Kamala Harris, became in the special election a 50-point Democratic win. So that is a shift in the Democrats' direction of 16 points. You see the pattern. It's clear. It's unmistakable. It's in Republican districts. It's in Democratic districts. It is gains for Democrats on net between 16 and 22 points so far in these special elections. And take a look. this is a 22-point Trump district tonight in Tennessee 7. So if tonight brings the same kind of shift we've seen in these special elections so far this year, that would bring this race down into the mid-single digits, into the potentially competitive category if it ever produced the kind of result you saw in this April 1st race in Florida. First, that could even, at the outer edges, mean a Democratic victory tonight. So that's why this thing got interesting, why this race in Tennessee got so interesting. We talk about the difficult political waters Republicans have found themselves in the last month or two. And then there's just this broader trend we've seen in special elections. Now, what's behind that trend? Part of this is there seems to be, it's pretty clear, an enthusiasm gap between the two parties when it comes to special elections, when it comes to lower turnout elections, non-presidential elections here. The Democratic base on the whole seems a little bit more motivated to go out and vote than the Republican base. Add to that the fact that in 2024, a key part of Trump's success in terms of, winning the popular vote outright, getting these margins as high as he did, he attracted a lot of voters who really only vote in presidential elections. They don't vote in midterm elections. They don't tend to. They don't vote, certainly, in special elections. So those voters seem not to have taken part in these elections, too. That's hurt Republicans. And to some degree, certainly when you start seeing numbers like this so consistently, there's that question of the swing of voters who did vote for Donald Trump, who did vote Republican in 2024. Perhaps now some of them have begun to shift away from the president and his party. It's not new that when you get into a midterm atmosphere, the political landscape can get difficult for White House parties. They almost always lose seats in midterm elections. So, again, that's what we've seen in special elections so far coming into this race in Tennessee's 7th district tonight. And again, there was a poll as well that put this race within 2 points a couple of days ago. So that's why this, seemingly very Republican district has gotten so interesting. Okay, now I'm taking a look at the clock here. You're probably watching it too. Don't worry, you won't miss any results. 7:52 and 34 seconds. Let me take you through quickly what we expect in the district tonight, where the action is going to sort of be as this results board lights up. So we're talking about Middle Tennessee right here, the city of Nashville. It's not all of Nashville. It's about a quarter of the city of Nashville. That's going to be Davidson County. You're going to hear me say Davidson County an awful lot tonight. Immediately south of Davidson County in Nashville, you've got a part of Williamson County. Williamson County is the biggest growing suburban area right outside of Nashville. Williamson County, part of it at least, is a big chunk of this district as well. The other major population center in this district is right here at Clarksville. It's the city of Clarksville. I think more votes potentially are going to come out of here than Davidson. It's going to be interesting to watch between those two which one actually produces more votes tonight. But the key thing, I think, as you see the results sort of come in tonight is most of the population is going to be in this part of the district. Okay, you have a lot of smaller rural counties sort of in the outlying parts here. In fact, you're actually technically in West Tennessee when you get over to these two counties. You're down at the Alabama border here, but again, tend to be very small rural counties. Most of the action in terms of the big chunks of votes are going to be coming out of this area. Now, Davidson County, I'll click it right here, where Nashville is. This is the Democratic core of the district. Kamala Harris won this portion of the district by 38 points in last year's presidential election. So this isn't a question of are Democrats going to win Davidson tonight. The question is, how much is Boehne winning Davidson by? And I think she needs two things here. She's got to do a lot better than Kamala Harris did. I think Boehne, if she's having a good night, she may want to get somewhere near 80% of the vote in Davidson County. Let's see as these results come in. Is that something she can do? Also, what's the turnout level? Again, we're talking about that motivated Democratic base. If you're going to really see that be a factor tonight, if there's some sort of disproportionate turnout, Davidson County is going to be the place to look at it. So that's a big one we're going to be keeping an eye on. The other place, I think if there's one other county tonight that could theoretically turn blue, and that if it does, the Democrats would actually have a chance in this district, is right here. It's Montgomery County. It is basically Clarksville. Now, Clarksville, you're talking about a city here of about 150,000 people. Fort Campbell, right on the line between Kentucky and Tennessee, is a big sort of local presence here. This is also a college town, Austin Peay State University, home of the governors. That's in Montgomery County, too. Montgomery County, again, this is typically going to be a Republican county, But I think if Democrats are having the kind of overperformance that they need to actually put this district in play, I think Bain probably has to win this county tonight. So if there's a swing county on the map tonight, it's going to be Montgomery County. It's going to be where Clarksville is. We're going to be talking about that a lot. Otherwise, I suspect every other county you see on the map is going to be red tonight. But the question is going to be, to what degree is it red? Robertson County here, right up on the Kentucky border, near the old dueling grounds. And this was a 75-24 Trump county last year in a presidential election. Again, if you're the Democrats and you're trying to make this a competitive race tonight, you want to have that Trump number, if you're a Democrat, down at about 65. Red on red's not going to work. You probably want to get that down to about 65%. Obviously, Republicans, they want to get as close to the Trump number everywhere as possible. So we'll talk more as this starts to light up. I do think once 8 o'clock rolls around, it's 7:56:07 right now. Once 8 o'clock rolls around, I expect the results are going to start trickling in pretty steadily around this district. Obviously, as they come in, we'll talk more about each county. Another thing to keep in mind, a lot of the vote, at least half the vote, maybe more, we're not sure, is going to be early vote that was cast ahead of time. That's going to be typically in a county, when the county lights up at first, typically that's what you're going to be seeing, the early vote. It's going to be reported out in one batch pretty quickly in a lot of these counties. The early vote tends to be more Democratic friendly than the vote that's cast in person on Election Day, which comes in later in the night. Now, we're not sure. Special election, this is volatile. This is an unusual circumstance. We're not sure how that pattern is going to look tonight. That's typically how it's been in the past. So it's something to keep in mind. When you start getting, especially in these big counties, the initial results when they come in the past, that's been the high watermark for Democrats in these counties, and they've sort of receded from there a bit as the night has gone along. We'll see if that pattern, something we're going to be looking very closely at as these returns come in tonight. We'll see if that pattern holds. But again, it's 7:57 and 15 seconds. 8 o'clock, these polls are going to close. I suspect they're going to start lighting up then. Again, biggest single source of votes in the county, in the district, should be Montgomery County, although if Democrats are having a very good night, it'll be right here in Davidson County. Again, Williamson County right here. We're going to be talking an awful lot about Williamson County. Cheatham County, I've kind of put the red blob, but this is Cheatham County right here. You'll hear a lot about that. And certainly Robertson County. Again, a lot of the vote is going to be coming out of these counties, and really Dixon County right here. This is where 80%, 85% of the vote is going to come in this district tonight. Now, it's 7:58. We're 2 minutes to poll closing time. I'm going to leave it up here, and I want to tell you what's going to happen when polls close, because we're going to keep this stream up all night. You're going to see some behind-the-scenes stuff. One thing you're going to see is this. Our streaming platform, NBC News Now, is live. My friend Gotti Schwartz is hosting at 8 o'clock. They're going to be live with their nightly broadcast. They asked, could they check in with us as the polls close at 8 o'clock? I said, hey, the more people who want to watch an election, the merrier. So I'm going to do a hit with Gotti just after 8 o'clock here. And what that's going to mean is, as these polls close, I'm going to have to pause for a few seconds. I'll tell you when I'm doing it. I'm going to hear Gotti in my ear. He's going to be telling the viewers what's going on. And then he's going to send it over here, and I'm going to do a hit. So you'll get to watch the hit that's also going out to our friends on NBC News Now. But don't worry, you're not missing anything, because the hit is going to be what's going on in Tennessee 7. Do we have any results yet? And so obviously, if during that hit anything lights up, because this is going to be 8:01, 8:02 p.m., obviously I'll be talking it on the air. You won't miss it. And again, I can't stress it enough. If you're watching this live stream now, I know you want to know every twist and turn of the action tonight in Tennessee 7. You won't miss it. I'm not going to leave this screen. I might go into individual counties, but I'm not going to go away from this screen, even if I'm not talking. There's going to be times tonight when I got to go over to this computer terminal over here. Computer terminal, that's a very dated term, I think, but I think you know what I mean. That's in my laptop, check in on some spreadsheets, things like that. Even when I'm doing that, you're going to get to look at this. You're going to see everything as it comes in. We're going to talk about it with you. I'm looking at the clock. Maybe you're watching yours at home, too. It is 7:59. This is like New Year's Eve. This is like being in Times Square. This is like, I feel like Dick Clark back in the old days. Speaking of Clarksville, 10 seconds till poll closing. So again, polls are going to close here. This is going to light up in a few seconds, and I'm going to do this hit with Gotti Schwartz. So, bear with me. Everything I say to him is what I'd be saying to you anyway. So it's 8 o'clock. Polls, folks, officially closed in Tennessee 7. And like I said, I expect you're going to see some returns here, and I'm going to take my pause. Here comes the Gotti Schwartz hit. Yeah. Can they just show the results, though? Yeah. They're doing their intro, folks. Don't worry. Nothing yet. Yeah, Gotti, polls now officially closed here in the 7th Congressional District of Tennessee. And again, you said it, this is a district that on paper, should be a layup for Republicans. It normally is. Donald Trump won this district by 22 points last year. In 2020, he won this by 15 points. But there was a poll that came out that showed this to be a close race. And something else we've seen this year is in other special elections for Congress. In races like this, we've seen Democrats doing a lot better in those special elections than they did in the presidential election last year. And so there's indications this might be a suspenseful race tonight. We are waiting. The way it's gone in this district in the past, they've started to report out results in these counties really quickly. So I'm kind of watching this like a hawk in case we see one of these counties light up right here. But basically what we're looking at tonight, Gotti, as the results start to come in, I'll zoom in a little bit. You're talking about parts of the city of Nashville. It's not all of Nashville in this district. Nashville suburbs. There's some well-to-do suburbs to the south. Then there's the city of Clarksville here. That's one of the bigger cities in Tennessee. And then there's a lot of rural areas to the west and to the south in this district. If Democrats are going to have a good night, if Democrats are going to have a winning night in this district, I think they need to have two things happen. Number one, right here where Nashville is, that's Davidson County. Democrats have to win this. They have to win this big, and they have to have massive turnout. That's what we're looking to see. Are they able to do that in Davidson County? That's one piece of it. And the other area here, I think we're going to spend a lot of time tonight looking very closely at Montgomery County, where Clarksville is, because I think it's the closest thing of all the counties you're looking at here to a swing county in this race. If Democrats are going to pull off the upset, I think Montgomery County, where Clarksville is one they would need to win. You're going to have a lot of other Republican areas here. And the question for Republicans, because they've really sounded the alarm in the last week, Republicans have about this district in these rural areas. Are Republicans getting some big turnout, too? That was one of their concerns, that their voters maybe weren't as engaged. You got it. All right, folks, thanks for bearing with me on that. And look, you didn't miss any results, and we got to do a great hit there with Gotti and his team. That was fantastic, and I appreciate them rolling with us on that. I know that was unusual for them, but anyway, polls, as we say, now closed. I'm going to say that a lot now until we get some results up on the screen. I can tell you, though, as a matter of fact, though, why I keep saying, keep my eye on this, don't worry, and you keep your eye on it, too. Just to give you a sense of this, take a look back here. I have the log from the last general election year. I'm just calling it up on the screen right here. The first report we got in November 2024 in this district was at 8:04 p.m. It's 8:04 p.m. right now. We got that from Wayne County, I believe. 8:05 p.m. was the first report in Wayne County in 2024. So we did get a lot of these initial reports in these counties. But in terms of the big ones, because, again, we're setting the stage here for the population centers, which, again, we're talking about are sort of, Nashville, its immediate suburbs there, and then up to Clarksville. In terms of when we got the first report from one of those, we got Robertson County. Okay, this is about 10% of the vote is going to come out of Robertson County. This is a big core Republican county. The question tonight in Robertson is, how Republican is it going to be? We got our first big batch of vote at 8:15 there in 2024. Williamson County. Oh, we've now got our first real vote. I can stop stalling, and now we can get to the action. Let's go to the Alabama border. This is Wayne County. And again, look, what you see, this is very small. Remember what I said. You're talking about the west and the south of this district. You're talking about they're big geographically. They're small counties. They're rural counties. That's Wayne County on the border of Alabama. You see that's like 45% of the vote. 45% of the vote we expect from Wayne County just got reported out. Why that much all at once? That's the early vote. That's the vote that folks went and cast, days, weeks before this election. Here's the Republican. This is no surprise. 79-20 for Van Epps with the early vote. Now, here's something we're going to be doing throughout the night as results come in. We want to compare it. How does this compare to the presidential election last year? Because remember, the margin overall in the district in the presidential election was 22 points. So how much, as these results come in county by county, are the results differing from that? So this was in this county, in Wayne County, it was a 77-point Trump victory in 2024. What are we seeing with about half the vote in Wayne County? You can do the math. That's a little bit under 59%. So that's from 77 to 59. That is a shift of 18 points away from the Republicans and towards the Democrats in Wayne County. Now, what Democrats need to be averaging here, this is a rough rule, is 22. They need to do 22 points district-wide. Now, again, this is small, rural, and deeply Republican, where Democrats have a chance to really kind of overperform as in the core Democratic areas around Nashville. But this is what we're going to be doing, county by county, and I see more lighting up. Let's take you through them right now. So there's an 18-point shift in the early vote in Wayne County. And remember, we say that early vote tends to be a little bit more Democratic flavored. If that pattern holds, then this shift will end up being a little bit less than 18 points, maybe down into the low teens if that pattern holds. So that's the initial readout there in Wayne County. We got a lot more coming in. Let's go north. Let's go to Perry County. Again, small, rural. This is the least population dense county in the entire state of Tennessee. Again, very Republican. It's the early vote. It's about half of the vote that we're expecting to come in. And again, what do you see? You see Donald Trump won it by 69 points in 2024. What do we have here? That's 40.6 points, round that up to 41. So that is a 28-point shift. And it's very small. You're talking like 1% of all the vote in the district is going to come out of Perry County. But it's a 28-point shift there in the early vote. Again, that might get less Democratic, might get more Republican-friendly as that same-day vote rolls in. But that's the initial readout right there. Continue now. Again, we're still in rural parts of this district. Houston County, named after Sam Houston. Again, very Republican, very small, very rural. What do we see here? Trump won this by 58 points in 2024. What do we see? That is 36. So that is a shift. 22 points at the moment. That's a shift of 22 points at the moment. Again, is that the high water mark for Democrats in Houston County? We'll see as the same day vote comes in next. Now let's go. We're actually getting west of the Tennessee River. It's Tennessee's got the three grand divisions. Maybe you got West, Middle, East Tennessee. That Tennessee River is the dividing line between Middle and West. There's actually two counties from West Tennessee that are in this district. Benton County, at least part of it, is one of them. Again, Republican, rural, small. 65 points was Trump's margin in 2024 in the early vote in Benton County. That is a 48-point spread for the Republicans. So that's a shift of 17 points in the Democrats' direction. Again, overall, 22 points was the margin, remember, for Trump last year in this district. And now let's go to Stewart County. Again, you're to the west of Clarksville here. But again, small county here. That's about 2/3 of the vote. It is 66-24 is what you're seeing. Trump won this by 63 points. That is a 42-point margin right now for the Republicans. So that is a shift of 21 points. Again, just looking at the early vote that came in there. So again, you've got 5 small, rural, deeply Republican counties where we now have the early vote reported out. What does that add up to in this district? That adds up to a very big number on paper there for the Republicans. Again, that's only 3% of the vote. These are all 80%. We say 80% or so. I'd say 85% of the vote in this district is going to come out of these counties. This is when this is when it really gets real, when you start getting the numbers from here. But we're kind of whetting your appetite here in the smaller counties right now. But again, to give you a sense of how we're looking at this as the night unfolds, Democrats need overall to have a net improvement of 22 points compared to 2024. Take a look at this. We'll just show you this throughout the night. This is overall. Remember, Trump won the district by 22 points. So if Democrats are going to, tie this or ever move ahead, they need a net improvement of 22. Now, obviously, you see right now that Republicans, that Van Epps is running at 71%. But we showed you what went into that 71%. He's not currently at Trump's level in those small counties. He's not close to Trump's level in those small counties. We will see if that changes as the same day vote comes in, because that is one thing that Republicans have been hoping for in the last week. In the last week, they sort of stepped up their efforts to go after Afton Bain. It seemed like they certainly had ample material to go after Bain based on some of the positions she'd taken in the past, some of her pronouncements. Cheatham County, folks, I'm going to interrupt myself because now from that more population-rich zone, we do have Cheatham County. Now, Cheatham County is going to be about 6% of all the vote in this district, and we got more than half of Cheatham County's vote right now that just came in, the early vote. So this is getting more significant now. You can see here 60 to 38.7 is what you got in the early vote there, and we'll do our math game. It was a 46-point Trump margin in Cheatham County in 2024. Currently, that is a 21.4 point margin for Van Epps. So that is a swing there of 24.5 points. Remember, 22 is the Democrats' goal tonight. With the early vote, at least in Cheatham County, that is 24.5 points, the swing away from the Republicans and toward the Democrats. You could see this is building towards a very critical question here. How different, when we start getting same-day vote out, how different is same-day vote going to be from the early vote? You could see how crucial that is, because at these current swings that you're seeing in the early vote, this would be very competitive for Bain if that were replicated across this district. But if the same-day vote ends up being significantly less Democratic, significantly more Republican, and this is sort of her high watermark in these counties, then that would not be enough if that's what plays out across the rest of the district. Let's take a look here. Again, we're in those small rural parts of the district here. Early vote, very Republican. Hickman County, we'll do our math, 61 points. Donald Trump's margin in Hickman County back in 2024. And we just got something very significant. We'll finish the thought here, though. 41.5 right now. This is basically a 20-point swing in Hickman County in the early vote. Look what just came in. It's blue. I don't think that's a big surprise, but if it is at the end of the night, it will be. So this is maybe the single most important county in the district. This and Davidson. Montgomery County, again, we're talking about Clarksville here. We've just got the early vote in Montgomery County. And Afton Bain, the Democrat, you could see by a 3-point margin, wins the early vote and takes the lead here in the tally in Montgomery County. Again, in 2024, more votes in this district came out of Montgomery County than any other county or any other portion of this district. And we said, if you were watching or if you missed, I'll say it again at the top of the broadcast. As these counties fill in tonight, if there is one swing county, if there's one county I want to know the winner of to guess who's won the whole district, it is Montgomery County. There's a core Democratic county in Davidson County. If there's one other that has a chance of being blue tonight, it would be Montgomery County. In the early vote, it is. Let's show you what happened here in 2024. Donald Trump won this by 18 points over Kamala Harris, Montgomery County. Again, you see right now that is a margin of 3 points for Afton Bain. So with the early vote, that is a swing of 21 points away from the Republicans and towards the Democrats. And remember, the number we're measuring in every one of these districts and district-wide is 22. Trump's margin was 22. Democrats have to have a 22-point net improvement from that. With the early vote in Montgomery County, they've got 21 in one of the biggest, maybe the biggest counties in the district tonight. So, again, we keep saying this. Is that early vote more Democratic? Is it significantly more Democratic than the vote that's cast in person on Election Day? Because as the Election Day vote is added to this, if it's more Republican, if Van Epps is winning it, then these numbers are going to change. Van Epps might even go ahead here. And then that shift from 2024 will become lower and lower and lower. And the more it moves from 22 points, the lower it gets from 22, the less a chance Democrats have, the more their chances will fade. So really, already the picture that's emerging here in this district is that same day vote. Democrats are kind of going to need that same day vote in Montgomery County to defy a bit of what we've come to expect of it. They're going to need, a flood of Democrats or Democratic voters to have come out today because this is the kind of shift they're going to need when the night is over in Montgomery County. They got it. They got close to it with the early vote, but they cannot lose that shift. They cannot afford to lose that shift as the rest come in. Again, you can see here all of the rural counties now outside of that sort of population zone I've been talking about. We now have that early vote from. I'm trying to remember what I didn't show you. I don't think I had shown you Decatur yet. Again, Decatur is one of those West Tennessee counties here. 69 points for Trump in 2024. The early vote in Decatur, that is 45.5. So, again, that's about a 23.5 point shift there. Again, Democrats want it above 22. It's 23.5 with the early vote, at least, in Decatur County. Did I see another one? Did I see another one light up while I was talking? I'm talking to my producer off the air, Adam. Everything else but the majors. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to hit the reset because now, again, that vote that we got here, again, that vote that came in Montgomery County, that's such a big, in terms of population, in terms of just raw number of votes, that's so big. You see, overall now, we've got a quarter. Remember, the first time I showed you this a few minutes ago before Montgomery, it was only 3% of all votes that were in. Now 25% of all votes are in here in this district. And again, you can see 16-point margin for Van Epps in sort of the running tally. But again, we're breaking this down a level deeper than Dixon County. I see Dixon County. I don't think I'd shown you this. Again, this is significant. This is a pretty significant one. About 8% of all the vote in the district is going to come out of Dixon County. You see half the vote. That's the early vote that came in Dixon County. This is a very Republican county. How Republican? Donald Trump won it by 52 points last year. What are we seeing tonight? That's easy math. That's 25 points. So 52, 25. That is a shift in the Democrats' favor of 27 points. Again, 27 points in. Again, fairly significant population here. I'm showing you a lot of these other red counties I've shown you tonight are very, very small population counties. Dixon County is one of the bigger counties. It's not on the same level that you see where Clarksville is, where Nashville is, but it's one of the bigger counties. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record with this, but the stakes here when we start to see that same day vote are huge because what you're seeing in the early vote is that Bain is producing the kinds of swings from 2024 that she would need to put this on the edge of actually having a chance in this race. She'd be right on the cusp based on these swings we're seeing in the early vote. But if those swings do not continue into the vote that's cast same day, the vote that people went out and cast at the polls today, then she will slip, she will fall behind, she will not have a chance here, and Republicans might have a shot to actually open up a lead here, which they would very much certainly like to do. They wouldn't like to just win this. They'd like to win this by a handy margin. And again, I have a second here. I can finish a thought I started as I keep an eye on this board. We'll go to the district-wide results here. That is one thing, and this is why I talk so much about this same-day vote. That's what Republicans have been talking about in the run-up to this, in the days, in the couple days leading up to tonight, that they sounded the alarm in the last week, that Bain, through some of her past pronouncements, some of the positions she had taken in the past, really had exposed herself to some potentially very effective attacks and critiques from Republicans. Republicans felt they had sounded the alarm, they had made those critiques, they had made those attacks, that they had basically woken up the Republican base that maybe had not been as engaged as the Democratic base in this election. If that theory of the case is true, if what Republicans are hoping and saying they believe they did is true, it will be reflected in the same day vote. It won't be reflected in the early vote because the entire idea is that a lot of the Republican base maybe was kind of asleep during the early vote while Democrats flooded the polls. Meanwhile, if the Republican base woke up in the last few days, what was there for them to do? It was to go out and it was to vote at the polls in person on Election Day. So again, the Republican theory of the case here is that as this Election Day vote comes in, there's going to be some strong Republican numbers that really erode these Democratic inroads that we're showing you with the early vote. Again, conversely, if there's been some sort of significant movement among swing voters against President Trump and the Republican Party, if there were even more Democratic voters particularly in a place like Davidson County, which we're waiting on, who themselves weren't engaged until the final days, you would see a Democratic surprise with that same-day vote. But that same-day vote, my producer, Adam, is sitting right about 12 feet in front of me right here, and I see him looking down at his computer, and what he is doing is he is looking in all of these counties that I have shown you, where we now have every single one of these counties that we have lighted up here, lighted up, how do you say that? Every one of these, we have the early vote. As soon as we start getting the same-day vote in any of these counties, he's going to let me know how it compares. Are we seeing the same shifts in that same-day vote that we saw in the early vote? Has it become more Democratic? Has it become less Democratic? Has it become much more Republican? That's the ballgame. That's going to be the ballgame. But again, the other big thing that we're waiting on here, as I said, the two big population centers in this district, the ones that sort of loom over all the others. We've heard from one of them. We've got the early vote in from Montgomery County. We await the same day. The one we haven't heard from right here is Davidson County. And again, Davidson County, this is where the city of Nashville is. About a quarter of Nashville is in here. It's some different parts of Nashville. Some of the heavily black areas of Nashville are in this district. There are also some areas here in West Nashville, some areas around Vanderbilt University, some college students, some economically upscale areas as well that are more almost like suburban in nature. We haven't heard from that, but this is where Democrats run up their margins. I'll show you again. This is what happened in 2024. Kamala Harris won the Davidson County portion of this district by nearly 40 points. Bain wants to be winning this tonight by like 60 if she's going to have a chance district-wide. And again, she also wants disproportionate turnout. I'm saying we're not sure whether Davidson County, we're not sure whether Davidson County is going to produce the most votes or whether Montgomery County is going to produce the most votes. But I think if Bain is winning tonight, has any chance of winning tonight, the answer to that question for her probably needs to be Davidson County, because she could really, really run up the score there. Again, also waiting, this is the suburbs of Nashville. This isn't all of Williamson County, but this is a pretty big chunk of Williamson County, suburban Nashville, south of Nashville there. Again, I'll just show you. These are Republican suburbs here. Donald Trump won this portion of the district by 30 points last year. Again, if Democrats are going to have any chance in this district tonight, they need it to be probably single digits in Williamson County. I think they'd want to get it under 10 points. Obviously, Republicans, the more they can get it well into double digits, the better they'll be feeling in Williamson County. Williamson County is sort of interesting, too, because it's part of this story we've talked about nationally in the Trump era. Suburbs, sort of economically upscale suburbs, where you got like white-collar professionals, a lot of college degrees, higher incomes. A lot of these Williamson County suburbs fit that mold. And we see this in suburbs around the country where they've moved pretty dramatically against Donald Trump. One of the features of 2024 was a lot of those suburbs in the Sun Belt region of the country, outside cities like Nashville in Williamson County, outside Dallas in Texas, other places like that, swung back, snapped back pretty strong towards Trump and towards the Republicans, that sort of slide away from the Trump Republican Party. I'll put the overall numbers back up here. Don't worry, nothing new has come in yet. As soon as it does, we're all over it. Don't worry about that. But again, those Williamson County suburbs are still, you hear nationally about the suburbs becoming sort of the core of the Democratic Party, the Democratic coalition, not outside Nashville. They are still big Republican suburbs. They're also extremely fast growing. That Nashville area, metro area, very fast growing. So again, we're waiting on Davidson. That's going to be a huge moment when we see what happens with that early vote in Davidson. Again, just how Democratic it is. And the question, too, is just how big it is in terms of the size of the turnout. Big moment when we find out something about Williamson County here. Again, I'm giving you a target there just in terms of trying to gauge the competitiveness of this race. If it's a single-digit race in Williamson County, this could be a competitive race. If it's double digits, it starts to move towards an advantage for Republicans. And the other big piece of real estate we have nothing from so far, Robertson County. Robertson County going to be about 10%, maybe a little bit less the way the turnout patterns go. But I'd say about 10% of the vote tonight is going to come out of Robertson County. And again, you're talking about in the sort of southern part of Robertson County here, closer to Nashville. You do have some suburbs. You have some older towns, some rural areas as well. You go all the way up to the Kentucky border there. You got a fun little story, that little divot there between Kentucky and Tennessee. They call that the dueling grounds. It's actually, there's a horse track there now, but this was contested land between the two states way back like in the 19th century. And so since no state really had ownership of it, that's where they did the duels. It's that, you ever notice it? It's that little dip there between in Kentucky and Tennessee. Fun facts I could share with you as we wait for results in some of these counties. That's the fun thing with doing this live stream. But again, so again, that's just to reset. That's where we stand. A quarter of the vote. 16-point advantage here just in terms of the raw tally for Van Epps over Bain, but some very big outstanding pieces of real estate here just in terms of getting even the early vote in those three counties. Again, those three counties should be just back of the envelope calculation here, 25, 36. Yeah, you're talking 45% of the vote in this district, or so should come out of these three counties. So very, very significant when we get those three. These are small, rural, low population counties that we have results in from so far. I just managed to switch the lines off. I put him back on. So again, if you wanted to make sort of an overall sort of assessment of the situation right now, I think it's clear, at least in the early vote phase of this, that Democrats have made very big gains in this district relative to 2024 when Donald Trump won it by 22 points. The gains that I'm seeing Democrats post in the early vote in all of the counties I've shown you so far are very consistent with the gains Democrats made in all of those special elections that I showed you at the top of the broadcast. If you were watching, we showed you a host of other special elections for Congress that have been held this year. Florida, Virginia, Arizona, where Democrats were making net gains of 16, 18, 22 points over their 2024 performance in the district. Certainly what we're seeing in the early vote here is consistent with that. In fact, probably exceeds what we've seen in those other places. But the problem Democrats have right now is that they need to replicate that when the same day vote is reported out in these counties. Again, the folks who did not vote in the early voting period, who came out, went to the polls today. How many of them are there? Is this going to be a much more Republican group than a Democratic group? Because Democrats really, again, we'll see what happens when you get numbers in here from Davidson County. If we were to get the early vote in from Davidson County, Bain would move ahead in this tally. She's going to do that well, even, we don't know exactly how well, but she will certainly, if we right now added the early vote in Davidson County, I'm pretty confident she would move ahead in this count. So the question is, once you get through all of the early vote here, and we'd still fill in these other two counties, once you get through all of that, can that pattern for Democrats continue when we tabulate the vote that was cast today? Or again, does that become a much more Republican vote? And again, if you're a Republican watching this right now, I'm telling you, if you're a Democrat watching this, what you would need to see your party have a chance to pull this out tonight. Again, if you're a Republican, you don't just want to win tonight. Obviously, you're hoping you can win big. You can win bigger, certainly, than the polls and the expectations were suggesting. How might that still happen, despite what you're seeing from this early vote? Again, it would be, was there a flood of Republican voters who went out to the polls today? And my producer, I think, has
Wayne County, one precinct of election day vote.
Uh-huh.
And it's in the sheet. It's 85-15 minutes.
Do we have that precinct early?
We don't have that precinct early.
Okay.
Overall results.
Okay. So, folks, this is the beauty of the live stream. You get to see all the raw individual component parts. You get to see the meal as it gets cooked. Again, the exercise, I think you know it by now if you're watching it. We're trying to see if the same-day vote is different than the early vote. We have one precinct in this entire district right now that you see colors from. We have one precinct, okay, where we've got same-day vote. It is in Wayne County. Now, this is what the early vote looked like in Wayne County, okay? The same-day vote in the one precinct is 85-15 for Van Epps. So you could see there about 60 points in the early vote and about 70 points the spread in the same-day vote that's coming in. Again, that is something we've seen in this district and elsewhere in the past, that when you start getting to the same-day vote, that it is more Republican flavored, it is less Democratic flavored. One precinct. There's going to be a lot more precincts that come in. We'll see if that continues. That's about a 10-point net improvement for the Republicans in the same-day vote. If that's something that continues across the district, that is very good news for Van Epps and for the Republicans in terms of winning this district tonight and surviving that scare. We don't know, obviously, if that's going to continue throughout the rest of the district. And again, I stress, we're talking about right now, not just one precinct, we're talking about the most rural, the most Republican part of the district. There just aren't that many Democrats in Wayne County. There just aren't that many Democrats. There just aren't that many. Sorry to make you go dizzy there. There just aren't that many Democrats in this part of the district. So it's not just that Republicans that right now Van Epps may do better with the same day vote here. Again, it really is he doing it here? Is he doing it maybe even in Davidson County? Not many Republicans there, but Democrats need to do just as well whenever we get that early number in Davidson as they do in the same day there. So again, that's one precinct from Wayne County. We will give these to you precinct by precinct if we need to. I'm looking over at my producer, Adam. We got one. What?
2 precincts in Perry County.
Perry County, 2 precincts. What do we got? Let me put it up on the screen. Okay. We're talking Perry County. We're going to give you same day from 2 precincts. What are they?
85-14 Van Epps.
One precinct is Van Epps, 85-14. What's the other one?
That's in both combined.
That's the combined total. 2 precincts combined in Perry County, same day vote, 85-14. So again, now you're looking at about a 46-point spread. What was exactly what was the early vote there?
69-29.
69. Okay, yeah. So it was 40 points. The margin in the early vote in Perry County was 40 points for Van Epps. So far, the margin in the same day vote, you can see right there, wow, that is 71 points. You got 2 precincts in Perry County. I can't stress. These are very, very, very small units in very, very small counties, but that is the trend that Republicans want to see as we start to get a more meaningful number of precincts that come in here. They want to do much better on that same day vote than they did in the early vote. At least in these 2 precincts in Perry County, they are doing that. In that precinct we showed you in Wayne County, they're doing it, not quite to this extent, but they are doing it. They want to do better than they did in this early vote in all these places because, again, the pattern in this early vote is friendly to Democrats. Friendly enough where if that pattern was replicated in the same day vote, Bain would have a chance here. If it's not, she doesn't. And if Republicans really run the numbers up in the same day, Van Epps would have a chance to win this thing still by a solid margin. So a lot of things still possible right now. Again, you see those precincts we're giving you. I keep telling you how small they are. So small, we're still at 25% in total. We're still at 57-41 in terms of the running tally. I'm going to look at my producer and ask, Adam, are there any more?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet, he says. Just the answer I wanted to hear. How are we going to kill time right here? We're not killing time, folks. We're waiting on the results. I am going to open up, and bear with me right here. There might be moments this night where I slow down for a second because I am looking in. I'm not checking Twitter. Don't worry. I'm looking in at our spreadsheets here because I want to check. There are a couple things that I want to check in our spreadsheets, and I need to open this up. There we go.
Davidson may be coming soon.
Okay. We got I don't know if you folks can hear him, so I'll repeat it. I may sound like an echo here. My producer just said we have an indication that numbers from Davidson County may be imminent. So I'm really going to kind of just stand here. Again, this is Davidson County. Whenever we get these numbers, that is going to be a very big moment in terms of putting this puzzle together. And again, I think you know it by now. I think you probably knew it before you even turned it on, but I'll say it just in case. This is the Democratic heart of the 7th District of Tennessee. It is a quarter of the city of Nashville. Actually, this might be a good time to there it is. Davidson early vote. Okay. Half the vote that we expect out of Davidson County just came in. And you can see it. Look at this. Let me put it up. Let's do the math we keep talking about. Remember at the start of the night, if you were watching, we said we thought Bain probably wanted to get 80% in Davidson County if she wanted to have a shot at this election. So 38 points was the margin for Kamala Harris, the one blue county in this district. 38 points for Harris. Tonight, that is a 70.5, we'll call it 70-point margin in the early vote for Bain in Davidson County. Net improvement of 32 points for the Democrats. Now, we've been showing you these net improvement numbers county by county. We've shown you some in these red rural areas, it's 23, it's 19, it's 25. I can tell you if you're Democrats, you want your 32-point net improvement to be in Davidson County because it's the most Democratic and it may end up producing the most votes of any of these counties tonight. So I said, when we got that early vote from Davidson County, I was sure that Bain would take the lead, and she certainly did. Now you can see that puts you near 40% of the vote that we expect to be cast in this district is in. You can see with Davidson County, Bain has moved ahead in this count. That margin, about 7,500 votes, about 7,600 votes and change there for Bain over Van Epps. And we just got something significant. What was it? We got Robertson. Okay. The plot thickens. Robertson County, very Republican. Again, about 10% of the district. Van Epps here, you can see early vote Robertson County. This was a 51-point margin for Donald Trump last year. What are you looking at there? That's 34. So that's a net shift of 17 points away from the Republicans toward the Democrats. Remember, Democrats' goal overall here is a 22-point shift. They need to get at least a 22-point shift in this district. So early vote, Robertson County, that's a little bit more encouraging for Republicans than we've seen in some of these other counties. What does that do to the district-wide vote? Okay, that brings it down. That brings the Bain lead down there. You're looking at about 7.4 points. Okay, that's about 5,000, about 5,200 votes, more than 7 points. We have one piece left. Now, we have a very, very small amount of same-day vote that's come in, but basically all you're looking at here is early vote. There's, again, a few precincts. We've taken you through them. It's basically the early vote. So there's one more piece of this to come. It's right down here. Oh, it's right down here in Williamson County. Now, again, this is suburban Nashville, higher income, professional class suburbs, fast growing, and still very Republican. This portion of the district in 2024 went for Donald Trump by 30 points. We said at the start of the night here that if Democrats want to have a chance at the end of the night, they probably want Williamson County to be a single-digit race. So we'll see. This early vote, again, we think the early vote may be a little more friendly to Democrats. How friendly? In Williamson County, in these suburbs. This is going to be, I said it's a big moment when Davidson came in. It was. It changed the leaderboard. This is going to be a very significant moment when Williamson comes in. I'll tell you the other reason, because if Williamson comes in shortly, before we've got a lot of same-day vote from elsewhere, if Williamson comes in shortly, then we're basically going to be looking at all of the early vote together. All of the early vote. And I think that's a very important benchmark, because if Bain is leading with all of the early vote tallied, then the question just becomes, how big is the pad and how much slippage can she afford in that same-day vote, which we've only shown you from a couple of very, very small precincts so far, which could be varied as it's reported out across this district. So, again, we don't know the timing here. Some of these rural counties may start reporting out their same-day vote in bigger numbers while we wait on Williamson. But if we do get Williamson County here before we start getting the same-day vote elsewhere, you're essentially then this district-wide number is basically going to be the early vote. And I think that's an important benchmark for Democrats. If they have any chance of winning in this district, they need to win the early vote. They need to be ahead in just the early vote portion. Then they need to withstand it in the same day, which is a whole other a challenge for them potentially. But at a threshold level, Democrats need to be ahead in the early vote. So with Williamson County pending here, and again, we showed you what Williamson looked like in the 2024 presidential election. We've been seeing net improvements for Bain, in the 20, in the Davidson County case, 30-point range with this early vote. So certainly you can expect this early vote when it comes in Williamson County to be probably pretty tight, probably in the single digits for Republicans. If it's a really, really impressive number for Democrats, then Bain would actually win the early vote in Williamson County. And I think she obviously she would want to, but if you start to look at the math here, how many votes, how many net votes she gains or loses from this early vote it's huge right now, because it gets to that question of how much slippage can she afford on election day. She doesn't just want to win the early vote, by 100 votes, because then if Van Epps is doing, even a speck better in the same day vote than the early vote, he'll win. She wants to win the early vote, and she wants to have a pad that can withstand. Okay, I think we just got another update. Is that right, Adam? A small same day? Okay, did we get some same day there?
Yeah, it's same day.
Okay, so let me call it up on the screen. And again, how many precincts?
4.
4 precincts. What was the early vote in Hickman?
70-28.
Okay, so the early vote in Hickman County was 42 points for Van Epps. We have 4 precincts. 4. So far in Hickman, where we've got same day, and this is the aggregate number?
80-19 is the aggregate number.
Okay, so the number of those 4 precincts collectively, it's a 61-point margin for Van Epps. So again, this is a limited number of precincts, but you're seeing it now in 3 different rural counties where we've gotten some precinct reports same day. You're seeing Van Epps running better on the same day, running, in this case, again, significantly better than he did in the early vote. Van Epps won the early vote in Hickman County by 42 points. In these 4 precincts that we've got same day, it's 61 points. So again, when we say Bain wants to win the early vote portion of this district-wide so that she can withstand slippage in the same day vote, that's the kind of dynamic that she has to guard for. So that's why that's so important, because you are seeing it. Certainly you're seeing it, and pardon me, I'm going to take a little bit of water here. It's not TV. I can take a break. Give me 1 second. I'm going to take a little bit of water. I know the silence is weird, but I need the... Okay. So...
You can also look at the aggregate same day in your spreadsheet, because we got a few more in Wayne.
Oh, okay. But can we compare that to the early?
Not for those same counties, just for the...
Okay, hang on 1 second. Folks, I'm looking at one thing. Again, I don't know if you can hear Adam. He's giving me a little bit of guidance here on the same day vote. I want to look at. Right, so in the precincts I've shown on the air are the only ones we have. Is that right?
We got like 1 more precinct in Wayne and 1 more precinct in Perry.
Okay, and it was the same basic?
Yes, exactly.
So that's 8 to 10 precincts. Okay, so story hasn't changed much. We only have about 8 to 10 precincts so far in this entire district where we've got same-day vote. And again, they're from the rural, very Republican portion of it. So that's good news for Epps, certainly. The question for him is, again, is that going to extend to the less sort of core Republican portions of this district? That's one question. The second question is, how much better is he going to have to do overall in that same-day vote? Because, again, he may very well, I think it's very likely that just in the early vote portion, it's very likely that just in the early vote portion here, he's going to be trailing Bain. So he's going to have to outperform his early vote total with the same day. So again, we're just, I wish I could wave a magic wand and take a look here at Williamson County, because I think if we get that piece of real estate here in the next minute or so, I think that's really going to clarify what it is we're looking for with the remainder of the vote. I was hoping I could kind of talk it into lighting up, but it didn't. And so while we wait, I'm going to keep an eye on it, and maybe I'll finish a thought that I was starting when we got the Davidson County numbers. And that is that one other significance, I think, to keep in mind as these results come in, whatever the outcome is tonight, this special election is coming against the backdrop of what? This drama over mid-decade redistricting, the redrawing of maps in all of these different states to try to give one party or the other an advantage in next year's midterm elections. This district, okay, has not been redrawn for 2026, but it is the product of that kind of a politically motivated redraw in this most recent round of redistricting, back heading into the 2022 election. And what I mean is this. Traditionally, I'm talking about going back to the Reconstruction days, post-Civil War. The city of Nashville was unified in one congressional district. And that district was basically an uninterrupted Democratic district, 19th century, 20th century, right up until the year 2022. Democrat Jim Cooper represented the Nashville-based district. The city of Nashville was the anchor of the district, and that had been sort of historically the case. Well, Republicans in Tennessee, redrawing the maps ahead of the 2022 midterms, they basically took the same approach. Put a pin in that. We just got some more vote. What did we get?
Wayne County.
More Wayne. What was the number?
We got 225 new votes. Just the cumulative is 8811.
Okay. No real headline, folks. I don't know if you could hear Adam, but again, it's coming. Wayne County, Tennessee is the king of same-day reporting so far. We got another precinct out of Wayne County. Same story. Small, rural, Republican, more Van Epps friendly than the early vote was there. But again, waiting here on Williamson County. So to finish the thought I was on a second ago, Nashville was the anchor of a unified Nashville was the anchor of a Democratic congressional district, for more than a century, right up to 2022. And what Republicans in Tennessee did in the redraw in 2022 was they said they wanted to, draw more Republican districts. So what would they do? They broke up Nashville and they split it up, portions of Nashville, into different districts. And so that's how this district, which is rural, exurban, again, part of this district is even west of the Tennessee River in the West Tennessee, that grand division there. They added a quarter of the city of Nashville to it. So the idea Republicans had was, break up that Democratic district based in Nashville, parcels of Nashville into surrounding districts and make all of those districts Republican. So this was a safely Republican. We've been telling you, Trump won it by 22 points. Certainly looked in 2022 and 2024 like that was a fine strategy politically for Republicans. They had no trouble controlling the district. But now, in a potentially changed political climate, with Trump back in the White House, with all of the sort of political externalities we've been talking about, we're looking at a special election year. I don't know exactly how this is going to go, but as I'm looking at it right now, Republicans at the very least have had to sweat this one.
We should have a completed county, Decatur.
Yes. Hold on. Say it again.
It should be near complete.
What county?
With Decatur.
Decatur. Okay.
Yeah.
We got all the vote, folks, in Decatur. Again, small, very Republican. Okay. It says 95%. This may be it. This is close to it. This may be it. Again, very small, less than 2,500 votes here. But let's compare it. We've got our first full county where we can compare 2024 results. Donald Trump won this by 69 points last year. And tonight, that is a 60-point margin. So that is a net shift in the only completed county that we have of 9 points. 9 points away from the Republicans, 9 points towards the Democrats. Again, district-wide, the Democrats need that number to be 22 points. So, again, that is an encouraging sign for Van Epps. Certainly, the numbers that we've been seeing in these other rural counties suggest you might see something similar in all of these counties right here. So that is a very encouraging sign for Van Epps. That said, he also needs to see similar, maybe not as dramatic, but he needs to see some similar strides when the same-day vote comes in, where there's a lot more voters and there's a lot more Democratic voters. He needs to see it in this portion of the district, too, because a 9-point shift in the Democrats' direction right here may sound underwhelming, and it may prove to be very underwhelming here. But we showed you that in the early vote, Democrats were outperforming by 32 points in Davidson County. I don't know what I just did there. Democrats were outperforming by 32 points in Davidson County. If they were ever to continue at anything like that level, 32 point overperformance in Davidson County, that would more than wipe out what just happened in the rural part of the district. So again, for Van Epps, That is an encouraging sign. It's an encouraging sign that while there was significant drop-off relative to 2024 in the rural portion of the district, and again, what are we talking about here? We're really kind of talking about this swath right here, the one completed county, and all of the same-day vote that we've seen so far there suggests that Van Epps is doing significantly better in the rural areas in the same-day vote than he did in the election day vote. But again, you're talking about maybe, this is a big area geographically. It's about 15% of all the votes that are going to be cast in his district. He needs to see something like that, something along those lines happening in this part of the district, too, if he wants to get out of the woods and if he wants to build a big lead here. Meanwhile, the fact that he's doing that in the rural part of the district underscores for Bain and for the Democrats the importance of continuing when we get same-day vote in Davidson County. Bain and the Democrats needed to continue to look something like this. Because if they're not getting the kinds of gains they need down here, they need bigger gains than they expected in a place like Davidson County, a place like Nashville. And again, it also underscores for them, we said this at the top of the night, the lone, I think, swing county in this district. Williamson might fall into that category, but the lone real, I think, swing county in this district tonight, right here in Montgomery County. And again, the same holds true with those rural areas, with Van Epps doing a little bit better same day, doing significantly better same day than early. It underscores for Bain the need to be able to win here in Montgomery County or get very, very close to it. And again, she leads by 3 points. That is the early vote that you've seen tally there. Question is, what's that going to look like when the same day vote comes in? The other thing that I wanted to look at here, this is a good chance to do it. Again, in last year's presidential election in this district, more votes came out of Montgomery County than any other county. The second biggest share of votes came out of Davidson County. What does it look like in the early vote? Well, okay, you can do the math here. That's a little bit less than 20,000 votes. Between Bain, 9,700, Van Epps, 9,100. You're looking at a little bit less than 20,000 votes cast so far in Montgomery County. And then in Davidson County, you're looking at more than 20,000. You're looking at more than 21,000 votes, just about 21,000 votes, I should say. There's some third-party candidates here that might. It's about 21,000. So it's about 19,000 versus 21,000. So at least in the early vote, now, unlike 2024, we have higher turnout in Davidson County, the core Democratic area of this district, than we see in Clarksville, it's sort of the swing part of the district. So that's we said that one thing Democrats wanted to see, among others, was the highest turnout coming out of Davidson County. In the early vote, that is the case. We'll see if that continues same day, or did Democrats kind of burn it all out on that early vote? So we'll kind of take a look here. And it looks like what's happened here as I've been talking and waiting on Williamson County. Again, when Williamson County fills in, that 44% in is going to go a lot higher, very quickly here. But I see that the numbers have tightened, and so I'm going to ask my producer Adam, where have we gotten it in the last few minutes from?
Yeah, we're standing by for Williamson. It may be coming in soon.
Okay.
We did get election day vote in Dixon. It is not all the election day, but it's a few precincts.
Okay. So, again, I don't know if folks heard, but we think Williamson, I said this, that Davidson was imminent a few minutes ago, and then it lit up. I think Williamson may be imminent. We'll see if it lights up. While we are waiting on that, we just got some more same-day vote here. Now, this is Dixon County. Again, this is about 8% of all the vote is going to come out of here. This is a Republican county, but we've got a fair amount of same-day vote here. So let me ask Adam, what was the early vote in Dixon?
The early vote was a 25-point margin. It was 62-37.
In the same day?
And the same day it's running at a 44-point margin, 72-27.
How many precincts?
That's, I believe, 4 precincts.
Okay. So this is, again,
about 1,500 votes.
Okay. So
Williamson just is coming.
Okay. Same pattern. Dixon, Van Epps doing better same day. This is a huge, huge development. And there it is. That's the early vote in Williamson County here. Suburbs of Nashville, big population, dense part of this district. And there you can see it. Van Epps, 55, round that to 55. Bain, 44. An 11-point margin for Van Epps in the early vote in Williamson County. 11 points there for the Republican. This was 30 in 2024. So that is a shift in the Democrats' favor away from the Republicans of 19 points. To be honest, if you're a Democrat and you're looking at this, I think you're disappointed right now. I think you wanted this number to be higher because, again, we have indications here, certainly in the rural part of the district and certainly from past experience, that same-day vote is more Republican, is less Democratic. So this may well be the high watermark for Boehne in Williamson County. And if the high watermark for her in a big part of this district, the suburbs of Nashville, if the high watermark for her is a 19-point net improvement over 2024, that's probably not going to be enough because, again, district-wide, she needs this number to be running at 22 points. It's at 19 in Williamson County in the early vote. If that number, if that 19, as the same-day vote comes in, starts sliding down, 17, 15, 13, that's going to make the idea of Boehne winning this, that's going to move that much farther from her grasp, I think, potentially. We were looking at this blank piece of real estate, Williamson County, and I was saying I think Democrats were hoping that would be, when it lit up with the early vote, a single-digit early vote county. They didn't get that. That's 11 points. I was looking at what happened in Davidson County, where that Democratic performance is so strong in Davidson County. And I was asking myself, did that spill over the border into Williamson County? Was there a scenario where Boehne actually won the early vote in Williamson County? If that had happened, I'd be sitting here right now telling you, I think Boehne's got a shot to win this thing. But it falls at 11 points. So what does that do district-wide here? That puts Van Epps back in the lead, tenuously, narrowly. We are talking about a margin there of 298 votes right now, separating the two of them. But Van Epps is ahead. All of the early vote in this district is now in. The trend line that we've established, the pattern that we've established in the rural part of this district is that Van Epps is doing better. We're talking 10, 20, maybe more points, net points better in the same day vote than he did in the early vote. So again, as the second half sort of the results come in, if in the first half this was basically a tie, if in the early vote it was basically a tie in this district between the candidates, at least in this portion of the district, you're certainly seeing Van Epps do better in the second half, in the same day half. And it really then becomes, what are you seeing in the population dense sort of eastern northern part of this district? And I think what that really comes down to, in my mind, is, first of all, this. When we get the same-day vote out of Davidson County, I think now Boehne, again, she's winning by 71 points in the early. She's got to keep doing that. She's got to keep doing that. And she needs, we don't know how many people went out and voted in person today in Davidson County. She needs there to be a flood. She needs it to be, because she's got to offset. She's got to offset what I'm talking about elsewhere. And I think now she's got to offset a little bit of a disappointment there in Williamson County. She would also, for that matter, I think, have to hope that Williamson County, that same-day vote in Williamson County, maybe is a little bit surprisingly more Democratic than we would expect based on what we're seeing so far. So I think that the same-day vote that we've gotten so far in the rural parts and that early vote out of Williamson County, certainly I think you'd feel better right now if you're Van Epps and the Republicans than if you're Boehne and the Democrats. But we need to see what happens there in Davidson County. And we need to see, again, what happens here in Montgomery County, where we do have, it looks like, some same-day vote.
We have a little bit of same-day vote in Montgomery. We have about 2,500 votes that came in.
Yes.
From, I believe, 6 precincts.
Hang on, do me a favor, Adam. What was the early vote? Remind everybody in Montgomery.
It was 51-48 for Boehne.
Uh-huh. And what do we have so far?
And the election day is coming in 51-48 for Van Epps.
Okay. So this is significant, folks. It's about 6 precincts here in Montgomery County, where the city of Clarksville is. Remember, I said this is probably the swing county tonight. Afton Boehne, the Democrat, won the early vote here by 3 points. In the 6 precincts that we've got same-day vote from, Matt Van Epps, the Republican, is leading by 3 points. So that's a net shift from a +3 Democrat to a +3 Republican. That's a net shift of 6 points here. So that is Van Epps doing better with the same day than he did with the early. But that's not nearly to the degree he's done better in the rural parts of this district. So that is good news for Van Epps and for the Republicans that he is doing better there with the same day than the early. I think that's overall good news for him. But for Boehne, that's the damage there could be worse based on what we've seen elsewhere. But it's still, she needs to win this county. And she needs still to really, really have a massive number come out of Davidson County when you see the same day vote right there. Because again, with Van Epps doing better with the same day here, and even, a 6-point swing in a county as big as Montgomery is significant. You're a Democrat and you want to offset that. This is the place to do it. It's Davidson County. So let me just reset overall here. 56% of all the vote is counted. That's a 0.7 of a point difference there. Van Epps, remember, he took the lead here when you got that Williamson County vote that came in just a few minutes ago, that early vote in Williamson. Now, as we've gotten some subsequent updates, he's leading in the same-day vote in Montgomery County. He's had bigger margins in the same-day vote in the rural part of the district. And so that lead for Van Epps is starting to tick up as the same day comes in. And I think basically the story that you're looking at right here, depending on the timing, if it does take a while to get the same-day vote out of Davidson County, then I think what you're looking at is this number is just going to continue to climb now. That's going to go over 1,000. That's going to go a couple thousand. This number is going to go over 50%. I think Van Epps, as the same-day vote comes in all through here, Van Epps is going to build a cushion for himself. The question is, how big is that cushion, and are there enough votes left? Are there enough votes left, and is there a big enough margin in Davidson County when that same-day vote comes in for Boehne to wipe all of that away? That's a very tall order for her. Now, my producer has something. Adam, what?
We covered our first completed county in Decatur. We also got our second completed county in Perry.
Okay. Why do I keep doing that? Okay, this is our second completed county. Again, I think I know where this is going. Adam, what was the, we don't need it anymore. We just need to show you. It was 69 points in Perry County. Very, very small, rural here. 69 points for Trump last year. And what do you see here? That's a margin of about 55 points, 76 to 21. So that is a net shift of 14 points. 14 points away from the Republicans towards the Democrats, again, in a small, rural, very Republican county. So I think we have 2 completed counties right now. And the shift in one of them from last year is 9 points. Is it 9 points, right, towards the Democrats? And we're seeing a shift here of 16 points to the Democrats. 14 points to the Democrats. Sorry, I lost my train of thought right there. So those are Democratic shifts. They're smaller than the 22 Democrats need, but that's what we've seen in 2 Republican rural areas. Let's reset this. 55%, 703. So we are where we were a minute ago. And again, it kind of depends on timing here. If in the next couple minutes Davidson County reports its same-day vote, then Boehne is going to, bolt into a big lead in this tally right here. And the entire story is going to be, can she hang on as the rest of the district fills in? If Davidson takes a while, and Davidson, I think, in the fall, there was about an hour lag between Davidson's early vote and the release of its same-day vote. If we see a lag like that, then the opposite's going to happen. Van Epps is going to open up a big lead here as the rest of the district sends in its final results. And that's what we just got. Where was that from, Adam? I see a big batch just came in.
Williamson.
Okay, so this is not all of it, but this is a big chunk of the same-day vote in Williamson County. Again, suburban Nashville we're talking about right here. And these numbers, I said when the early vote came in, it was good news for Republicans. This is very good news for Republicans. So this is a 30-point margin in Williamson County. Last year, you can see now with some of the same day in already, Van Epps has it up to 18 points. This is a big piece of real estate right here. And the Democratic gain right now is only 12 points. Remember, in the early vote, it was Adam, what was the early vote here?
Early vote was 55-44.
Right. So it was 11 points. It was an 11-point margin in the early vote, right? It's now an 18-point margin. So So that's how favorable to Van Epps the same-day vote is so far in Williamson County. He won the early vote by 11. He now leads the tally with more early vote to come by 18 points. He's moved that number closer to where Donald Trump was in Williamson County back in 2024. Only a 12-point gap right there. Again, if you're Republicans, that's a very encouraging sign for you. If you're Democrats, you do not like what just happened. You don't like either of the updates you got in Williamson County if you're a Democrat tonight and what that's done. And we just got another update. Where was that? I see it went to 4,000.
Yeah, we got 2,600 votes in Robertson County.
Yep. Okay, so we're getting same day. Yep. Now tell me, what was the early vote in Robertson?
It was 67-32.
So it was the early vote in Robertson, again, very Republican here, about 10% of the district. It was 35 points for Van Epps in the early vote. What is the current same-day vote?
76-22.
54 points is the margin in the same-day vote in Van Epps' favor. So again, he is building that lead. He led by a sort of underwhelming margin with the early vote, but he is getting what he wants to see in the same-day vote. And now you can see, with more same-day to come in Robertson, Van Epps has that margin up to 40 points. What's the margin in 2024 in this district? It was 51. Again, this is now, at this point, with more votes to come in, and I think you can expect they're probably going to be Republican-friendly votes. Already, Van Epps here is within 11 points of the margin Trump got. We said this, Republicans lose, Democrats win. If Democrats can make a 22-point shift, it's only half of that in Robertson County with more vote to come. And clearly, that is a Republican vote, an even more Republican vote that's coming in with the same day right there. These same day updates for Van Epps have been very good. We kind of expected it in the rural areas, weren't sure what to make of it. What he got in Williamson County same day, that's extremely encouraging for him. What he just got in Robertson County, as encouraging, maybe more encouraging. His margin now opens up to 7,300, which means with about 2/3 of the vote now tallied in this district, he leads this by 7 points overall, 7,300 votes. That means more just came in somewhere. What was the biggest source of votes we just got?
4,000 votes in Montgomery.
We got more from Montgomery. And okay, we said at the outset, the swing county in this district. I said, tell me who wins Montgomery County. You've taken a big step to telling me who wins this district. Afton Bain, the Democrat, won the early vote in Montgomery County. She won it by 3 points. The same-day vote has been coming in, and holy smokes, it's a Republican vote, right? Tell me, Adam, what is just the same-day vote in Montgomery?
The total cumulative is 61-38.
Okay. So again, Bain won the early vote in Montgomery County by 3 points. Now, and we've got a sizable number of precincts here and votes coming in same day in Montgomery County, a much better sense of what that same day vote is. Van Epps is winning the same day vote by 23 points. So it's not just a small difference between the same day and the early. It's a big difference. It's a big Republican-friendly difference here. So again, take a look. 2/3 of the vote in Montgomery County. We called it the swing county in this district at the outset. Let's compare it to what happened in 2024. This was a Trump by 18 points county. Now tonight, with more votes coming in, and we just showed you that trend line is very Republican with those votes coming in same day in Montgomery County. Already a 4-point lead for Van Epps there. So that means that's a shift at this point. That is a shift of only 14 points in the Democrats' direction, 14 points away from the Republicans. Again, the target number for Democrats has been 22 points. They want 22-point shifts. On average, it's at 14 right now in one of the most critical counties in this district. And I suspect that 14-point shift is going to get a lot lower as more vote comes in. Because, again, we are seeing, I think a storyline is really developing here about that same-day vote, the vote that was cast today in person, being very Republican. Republicans were saying they thought they maybe woke their base up in the last couple of days. Numbers like this suggest they very well may have. Let's look at the district-wide vote, 8,100. Adam, what we got?
We have a few more completed counties, Wayne and Benton.
Okay, so now we've got, again, we're going into sort of the, this is a partial county here, west of the Tennessee River, small, very Republican, very rural, but let's get on the record with it. Donald Trump won this by 65 points last year. We've got all the vote in, we think, in Benton County here. That is a 56-point margin for Matt Van Epps over Afton Bain. That is a net shift there, away from the Republicans towards the Democrats of 9 points. Remember, rule of thumb, we've been looking at how close is this to a 22-point shift. That's what Democrats need to win it. That would be disaster for Republicans the closer you get to to 22 or over. It is 9. That's the shift in Benton County, a 9-point shift. Did you say, Adam, we got full results in another county?
Wayne.
We got Wayne County, Alabama border. I think they were the first to report out results earlier. Again, very small, very rural, very Republican, but Trump won this by 77 points in 2024. What are we looking at? That's 70 on the dot. The margin for Van Epps over Bain. Shift away from the Democrats towards the Republicans in Wayne County of 7 points. Target for the Democrats, disaster for the Republicans would be 22. We are a long way, you can see there, from 22 points. Van Epps holds it to only a 7-point decline net in Wayne County. Again, you just see this pattern here, this same-day vote. Not maybe a big surprise in these small, rural Republican counties, but certainly in Williamson County and certainly up here in Montgomery County, that's been the story as Van Epps builds this lead now to 8,500 votes. 2/3 basically in district-wide here. That's a margin now sitting at basically 8 points. And I want to check, Adam, scream if anything comes in. I'll leave this up, make sure everybody can see it, because we've been saying how important that Davidson vote is. I want to know how much vote is even left in Davidson County. What do we think is left in Davidson? I am checking here. Estimated remaining vote in Davidson. Okay. This is, I want to preface this by saying this is very, very rough math right here. These are rough estimates, but just to give you a sense of it, the margin right now for Van Epps district-wide is 8,500 votes. We've got roughly half the vote in here in Davidson County. We don't know how many votes exactly were cast same day, so this is a rough estimate, but it might be about 21,000 votes. So if you're looking at about 21,000 votes right here, okay, if Bain is winning it, let's say 81-20, okay, that would be about 17,000 to 400. Again, let me take you through what I just did in my head so it's clear to everybody. Bain is leading the early vote 85-14 here in Davidson County. It's pretty clear Republicans are doing a little bit better with the same day than with the early. Now, this is an extremely Democratic county. I don't think Republicans are going to do that much better. So let's say the remaining vote is 80-20 Democratic. Let's say there's about 21,000 votes left in this very Democratic part of the district. What would that translate into? That would be about 17,000 new votes for Bain. That would be about 4,000 new votes for Van Epps. In other words, that would be a margin of about 13,000 votes for Bain. Again, these are big ifs, back of the envelope, all this stuff. But just keep in mind, if we say she is going to net an additional 13,000 votes out of Davidson County, what would that do to the deficit she now faces district-wide? Well, there you go. She trails by 8,700 district-wide. If we now dumped in a 13,000 vote plurality for her in Davidson County, she would vault into the lead district-wide by 4,300 votes. Then what would be left? What would be left outside of Davidson County? I'm going to look right here, and I'm going to tell you. We still think, give or take here, this is the most significant, I would say. Yeah, Robertson County. The biggest outstanding source, I think, of overwhelmingly Republican county left. The biggest outstanding source right now, we think a very Republican, would be right here in Robertson County, right? Robertson County, which is running 69-29 for Van Epps. Give or take, rough back-of-the-envelope calculation here, 7,000 votes remaining in Robertson County. I mean, if Van Epps just wins those 5,000 to 2,000, I think that's a conservative estimate, he nets 3,000 votes. And if he nets 3,000 votes there, we just told you, if Bain were to get what we said out of Nashville and pull ahead by 4,300, with what's left in Robertson County, Van Epps could probably knock this thing down to 1,300. What would be left after that? You'd still be looking at probably more than 10,000 votes in Montgomery County, Clarksville, where we see Van Epps running up the score so far in the same-day vote. And there still remains, there's not much of it left, but I'll just, there still remains probably about 2,000 votes, give or take, in Dixon County, right here. There probably remains, in Cheatham County, it's probably about 3,000 votes left. These are all, they're Republican to start with. And what they're tabulating right now is the election day vote, the same day vote. So what's coming in is not just Republican, it's like super Republican, it's extra Republican. So long way of saying, take a look at this, 65% here. Now we got another update in to pad that Van Epps lead a little bit. I think at this point, obviously you're a Republican, you are feeling great right now. If you're a Democrat, you're probably right now thinking about how can you maybe phrase this as a moral victory. But the reason we're waiting here still on Nashville, I'm sorry, what did we just get?
Davidson.
Okay. This is not all of it, though, right?
We got 6,000 votes in Davidson, and we just got 3,000 in Montgomery.
Okay. We got some of the remaining vote in Davidson. They didn't do this all in one batch. So take a look here. 2/3 of the vote is in it. Remember, the early vote was 50%. When we got the early vote in Davidson County, that took you to half the vote in. We now have 64% in. So what just came in Davidson County was a batch there of that, about 30% of the same-day vote. Here's the key question. What was the early vote in Davidson? 84-14?
In Davidson, it was 85-15.
Okay, it was a 70-point margin for Bain in the early. What is it now in the same day?
72-27.
45. So that is a discouraging sign if you're a Democrat. That's a very encouraging sign if you're a Republican, because we were just going through some math scenarios here about, could Bain get a massive number out of Davidson to put her ahead district-wide and then absorb all of this sort of Republican success in the rest of the district. I was basing that on the same-day vote in Davidson theoretically breaking 80-20 for Bain. What we're seeing right now, at least, is not 80-20, it's 72-27. So the plurality I was kind of playing around with just to see how the numbers might work, right now with the same-day vote, Bain would get less than what I just took you through right there. So, again, she needs, she would just basically at this point need there to be a lot more votes overall in Davidson County than we are estimating, because she's still winning it by a big margin. But, look, even with that, that's a big chunk of the same day. She's still down 7,400 district-wide. In fact, we could play it out based on that. Why am I sitting here talking in generalities when we can give you an actual number here? With that update from Davidson County, right? Okay, so we think probably about 15,000. About 15,000 votes left in Davidson County. Let's say it's 15,000. Okay, we just said 72-27. Let's get the old calculator out here. 72-27. Let's say it remains 72-27 for 15,000 votes. That would be an additional 10,800 for Bain. 27 times 15,000. That'd be an additional 4,050 for Van Epps. What is that? That's a difference of 6,800 votes. It's about a 67. Yeah, she would net about 6,800 new votes if that's what we see for the rest of Davidson County. About 6,700 more votes. And right now, district-wide, Bain trails by 8,000. So it's just, frankly, it's very hard to see. If you're trying to sketch a scenario here for Bain, I think now we may be moving to that phase where Democrats are thinking about, can they try to sell this as a moral victory? Can they say, look, they made a massive gain here in a Republican plus 22 district? I think we may be getting to the point where Republicans try to say this was a solid victory for Van Epps that kind of maybe cools the sense that political crisis was enveloping the party. You can see right now that the margin is 6 points, about 6.5 points district-wide for Van Epps. I think we just showed you that with what's left in Davidson, Bain could take a chunk of that out. but there's still going to be, outside of Davidson County, I'm just quickly counting up, 20, 25, 29, 30, 33. I'm going to say, give or take, there's still going to be about 33,000 votes to come district-wide outside of that. So 33,000 votes additionally outside of Davidson County. There's going to be, probably about 33,000 votes from the rest of the district. Van Epps is cleaning up. He's cleaning up in that same day vote. So if this isn't just Republican, if this is super Republican vote, Van Epps may have an opportunity here to pad this margin. It's going to take a dent. Whenever the rest of Davidson comes in, this margin is going to take a dent for him. Now, we just got what just came in, Adam?
We just got some Humphreys.
Okay. Humphreys County, small, rural Republican just came in, pads the Van Epps margin a little bit right there. Was there a little bit more?
We got 1,000 votes in Robertson a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can, to complete the thought, you could see Van Epps opening this up a little bit. Again, the only place right now left on the map where Democrats are going to be able to cut into this, probably is right there in Davidson County. And we just showed you what we think is probably roughly left to come in Davidson County. Hard to see that being enough to erase this. Or it still looks like it's going to bring Bain a few thousand votes short. And then, she could suffer some more serious slippage in the rest of this district. So I'm really interested right now to see where the final margin in this thing is going to land. One thing I want to know kind of overall, and I'm going to go into my computer right now, what is the same day vote overall running at in this district? It is, that's first vote, Adam, right?
Yeah, 64-35 is the cumulative.
Yeah. And that's very, so, okay. We think this is a real, I think this is a dramatic way of, I think this captures it kind of perfectly what's happened here. Remember, as these numbers were filling in, we kept talking about it's the early vote. There's some same day mix. Okay, we think we basically know what the cumulative early vote only in the district was. And we think Bain in the district probably won the early vote by 5 points, probably about half the vote it's going to be cast in this district, maybe a little bit more. She wins that portion of it by 5 points. Now, the other, what do we got? There it is, folks. I've been dancing around it. I think if you've been able to read between the lines, you've known for the last 20 minutes, but it really kind of became obvious. Matt Van Epps, the Republican nominee for Congress in Tennessee's 7th District, has won the special election to replace Representative Mark Green, the Republican who resigned his seat. Van Epps defeating Democrat Afton Bain, 3/4 of the vote now in. It is an 8-point margin for Van Epps. It may climb still as more votes come in, but this is a district, again, that Donald Trump won by 22 points last year. He won it by 15 points in 2020. It is a district where polling last week, somewhat surprisingly, showed a very close margin of 2 points, a flood of national attention from both parties in the final days of this campaign. And I think it seems pretty clear Republicans talked about waking up their base with that flood of activity in the last week. It certainly seems, based on the performance of Van Epps with Election Day voters, people who went to the polls today and voted, didn't vote early, went today. Van Epps is getting big turnout, it would appear, and massive margins, enough to withstand strong early vote performance from Bain, strong performance, I would say, overperformance from Bain in Davidson County. So again, Matt Van Epps, the winner of Tennessee's 7th special election. Folks, stay tuned if you're still watching, but I got to do an update for News Now. You're going to get to watch that. I got to keep my mouth shut for the... Yeah, Gotti, really interesting. I think one of the things we've seen, as you can see, about 3/4 of the vote is in right now. Matt Van Epps, the Republican, leading by 8 points, about a 10,000 vote margin over Afton Bain. What's interesting about this district is there's a big Democratic area right here. It's the city of Nashville, or it's part of the city of Nashville. And you know what? Afton Bain, the Democrat, did really well here. We're still waiting. There's more votes to come in from there. But this is a massive margin for Bain here. She won. She's leading by 65 points in Davidson County. She got a very high turnout in Davidson County. So that was a very encouraging sign for her. But what has happened as this map has filled in tonight is we have seen in rural Republican areas, in more swingy areas, and critically, I think, in the suburbs, the well-to-do suburbs of Williamson County, immediately south of Nashville. I think Van Epps exceeded expectations, and I think he did it with a flood of late interest in this race. One of the things, Gotti, that we've been tracking as these results came in tonight was the difference between the vote that was cast early. This was cast weeks ago, days ago, the early vote versus the election day vote. The folks who woke up today, decided to go out and vote, and did so in person at the polls. There is a massive difference between how these candidates did, depending on which vote we're talking about. Bain won the early vote. Van Epps has an absolute landslide in the same day vote. Republicans, Gotti, talked about this race drawing national attention in the last week. They talked about Bain having taken some far left positions, having some inflammatory rhetoric in the past. They said they had shined a light on that. They had woken up Republican voters in this district. Maybe they had woken up swing voters in this district who may not be nuts about Trump and the Republicans right now. And they had turned those voters against Bain and motivated them to vote. Looking at the turnout that we're seeing same day, I think there's some evidence in these results that that is what happened. So again, overall, Republican district, typically Trump won it by 22 points. Republicans were, I think, kind of panicking a bit last week when polling showed this to be close to a dead even race. But Van Epps ahead by 8 points. I think there'll be some more Democratic vote to come here out of Davidson County, Nashville, but there's going to be an awful lot more Republican vote. So you may be looking at a margin that finishes somewhere right around what you're looking at. Republicans, I think, Gotti, would love to see that number go high and be able to say double digits. We'll see where it ends up landing. Yeah, well, I mean, that's, again, the backdrop here. I'll just show you. This was the result in this district in 2024. Donald Trump won the district by 22 points. I could wind the clock back farther. It was 16 points. I've been saying 15, but he won it by 16 points in 2020. So you're talking about traditionally, staunchly Republican areas. Again, I think one of the questions coming into tonight was, Democrats want this thing to be, they obviously want to win it, but they want this thing to be a squeaker. They want this thing certainly to be in single digits to say they've got momentum. And I think they can certainly, if this thing were to still land in single digits, they'll make that argument. And there's a lot to be said for that. We're certainly seeing a very motivated Democratic base there. But one thing Republicans have been saying, too, is they think next year, even if there's a difficult political environment for them in the midterms, they think the Democratic Party has a bit of an image problem. Some of the folks who sort of have become national faces of the Democratic Party, folks like AOC, Bernie Sanders, Zoran Mamdani in New York City, Republicans think they can turn some swing voters against Democrats, tying them to those kinds of candidates, those kinds of positions, and motivating Republican voters to vote against Democrats. There's some evidence, I think, just based, again, on this same day vote, that Republicans got a lot more interest in the final days of this campaign. I think that's what they're going to talk up coming out of this. But yeah, overall, if this lands at 8 points, Democrats are going to be able to say they made a pretty big stride in a very Republican area. Okay. Folks, that was News Now. That was Gotti Schwartz again. Gotti, so kind to let us to do that. I mean, look, you heard what I had to say there, trying to put these thoughts together on the fly. What occurred to me while I was saying that, and maybe I'll kind of expand on it here, is I guess to me there's two ways of looking at this result here. There is that big picture. This was a Trump plus 22 district, and again, we're looking at 8 points right now, and I'm just kind of looking at, if the I'm just extrapolating it here. If the current margins kind of stand in all these counties as they come in, I mean, I think you're probably looking at. We just got Davidson, didn't we, Adam?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll finish the thought. I know we're a bit all over the place here, but we told you all results. We just got most now of the results in from Davidson County. Only a small scattering left there in Davidson County. That might be absentee vote. That might be vote by mail. So you can see here the margin for Bain is sitting, that's 80 to 19. That's a 62-point margin for Bain right now. We'll see how that comes in with this final scattering of votes. That's a big number. That's a big number. This was a 38-point district in 2024. Harris won it by 38. You're looking at 62 right now. That's a net improvement for Bain of 24 points. And we were saying all night, Democrats have that target of 22. Well, they're going to exceed it in Davidson County. But frankly, again, this being the most Democratic part of the county, to only get barely over 22 there, they needed more. Believe it or not, you're looking at numbers like that, and they needed more. And if they weren't going to get more there, they needed more elsewhere in the district. And I think the biggest disappointments for Democrats on the map tonight, right here, the suburbs, Williamson County, the votes continue to come in. It's getting more and more Republican as those votes come in. Also up here in Montgomery County, where Clarksville is, again, we still got a quarter of the vote to come here. That same day vote is favoring Van Epps. We said at the start of the night, this is one Democrats to have a shot wanted to win. And then just in the same day turnout, the election day turnout, Bain getting swamped by Van Epps in the rural parts of this district. So what's this going to all add up to? Well, now that we've basically got Nashville in, you can see it's still a little bit more than a 4-point margin district-wide for Bain. Outside of that scattering of votes still to come in Nashville, everything else that's going to come in, the final quarter of the vote here, I think you can expect is going to be a pretty Republican vote. So I think this is kind of as close as it's going to get for the rest of the night, unless in the next 30 seconds they suddenly give us that final scattering from Davidson. But this margin is going to grow. Are we looking at a race that ends? This is Montgomery, excuse me. There you go. This margin is going to grow as the rest of the results come in tonight. Is it going to be 8 points, 9 points? Could it get to 10 points? I think there's a sort of a psychological question there. Republicans would love to get this to double digits, say it's double digits. But what I was saying there a second ago before we kind of got diverted by Davidson was, I guess there's two ways of looking at this. I think there's that sort of big picture global way of looking at it, that this is how Democrats want to talk about it. They're going to look at this and they're going to say Donald Trump won it by 22. Let's say it were to end at 8 points tonight. Bain brings it down to single digits, gets a 14-point net improvement in a deeply Republican area. That spells trouble. Typically, that's the kind of a special election movement away from the president's party that has spelled trouble in midterm elections before. So they will say, well, it's not a win for Bain. While it wasn't necessarily a squeaker, it was double-digit improvement in a very Republican district relative to 2024. And I think likely it's going to end somewhere in that. That's probably going to be true. Again, we'll see where the final margin lands, but I think that's probably going to be true. And again, we got 83%, I should say, 83% in right now. I'm just looking at this and registering it to myself. The other way of looking at it, and what I was saying a bit in that hit too, though, is that we've seen gains for Democrats in other special elections this year. We saw a 22-point gain for them in Florida. We saw, a 16-point gain. I think in 2 districts we saw a 16-point net gain for them. And we saw a poll last week that put this race at only 2 points. And I think there was talk that I think everybody in both parties acknowledged it was a long shot. It was a long shot that Bain would actually win this. But I think there was a thought that this thing was going to get, seriously turned into a squeaker. Bain may have a chance there, an outside chance to win it. And what I'm seeing in the same day vote here is I think we saw higher same day turnout maybe than we were expecting. And I think we saw that same day turnout more Republican, especially in places like Williamson County, than we were expecting as well. And so one thing that I'm thinking about there is, is there a story there for Republicans as well that they may take away from this about how to wake up their base? How to maybe win over some swing voters. They thought that Bain as a candidate was a very ripe target. And they're going to try to, a lot of the attacks they made against Bain are attacks they want to make against the National Democratic Party and they want to use in districts around the country next year. So, did they see in this final week, wake up, look at a close race, maybe a depressed Republican base? Did they succeed in waking up that base, maybe turning some swing voters against Bain? And again, they would love to get this final margin up closer to 10 points and be able to say, hey, look, once they got voters to focus, they got some traction here. So I think that's the story Republicans would like to tell. Seeing where this final vote, where this final tally lands, again, I think that 10-point thing looms, as sort of, again, it's psychological, but, it could be significant here. It's a 5-point margin right now, 85% in, a margin there of about 7,200 votes. Just taking a look right here at what is left to come. Anyway, when I start saying it probably means it's about time to wrap this up. So, folks who stayed through this, who joined us, who were part of this, thank you. This was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was a fun way to watch this. I hope this is something we can maybe do a little bit more of for primaries for other elections next year. Love to hear your thoughts. Share them, I guess, in this YouTube link or tweet me or whatever. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for joining us. And again, Matt Van Epps, the Republican, going to survive a scare here over Afton Bain, the Democrat. Final margin TBD. Democrats will certainly say, with justification, that they managed to shave a lot off a very big Republican margin in a very big Republican district. Republicans hope that they can walk away from this saying, they found a way to generate late traction against the Democrats in a challenging political environment. That'll be it for our live stream coverage of Tennessee 7's special election. And Steve Kornacki, thank you for joining us.